And we are live. Welcome to this week's episode of the Bullpen Cart. I, of course, am your host, Jordy Cannell, the G-Man. With me is everybody's favorite, the hero from Boston, Mr. Greg, the Prophet Piatelli. How are you?
Roller coaster week. Roller coaster week.
You're telling me.
On a personal level, I know you're all sports, all business all the time, but moving is not fun. And moving in Boston
sucks.
Moving in Boston with all the colleges and is even less fun. I guess as this was moving day for most colleges this weekend.
Oh,
I know.
Jeez.
So they call it Christmas. With all the stuff that people just leave on the side of the road that anyone is free game to have. So
yeah,
or people just take it.
Yeah, just come and get it on Craigslist without the Craigslist, just leaving shit on the curb. It's nice.
You know, it's
get a new living room that way.
It's Christmas in Boston, I guess.
Christmas in Boston. Well, and moving's never fun. Except for all these different waiver moves we've been seeing. You know, we've had a lot of different movement between, you know, Cameron Maybin going to the Astros and Justin Verlander going to the Astros. And Greg, can you remember another year that there have been this many waiver pickups?
First and foremost, I just want to say that was an unbelievable transition by the host of this great show, the guy who, for all intents and purposes, we all love. The reason why we listen. The voice is magical. The G-Man.
Man who drives the cart, as they call me.
George Washington Cannell VI.
That is me.
You know, it's unbelievable segues. True professionalism.
You know, we've been doing it for a couple months now. You know, I've learned a thing or two.
I love it. So back to your question in all seriousness. You know, the Astros are an interesting team because they're a team that everyone was on for not doing anything at the deadline. And, you know, not only, you know, they got Verlander and some outfield depth, but, you know, they also, you know, set themselves up now for this huge push come with September call-ups and getting all their guys, getting some sitting because they're so far ahead. They're at a place where they can get Verlander right and back into a playoff atmosphere. They can get their guys some rest because they're 13 and a half games up on the Angels and 14 and a half on the Mariners. So they just can cruise for the month of September, essentially. I'm sure the magic number, and I'm sure you have the magic numbers because you're Mr. Smart Man for everything. But, you know, it was a huge move. And no, I don't remember in any time recently that I, you know, have seen this many pickups off waivers. You know, ESPN put out a stat the other day of like the true deadline versus the waiver deadline. Like, you know, you never used to see anything like that.
No. And I'm wondering, like, we talked a lot leading into the normal trade deadline, the non-waiver deadline, as we distinguish it as now. And we talked a lot about the second wild card and does it make a difference, and a lot of the different moves that we were seeing, whether it was adding to bullpen depth, and we're seeing it, and the Red Sox kind of led off with it of adding depth to your outfield, and the Dodgers continued it a little bit after the deadline, getting Curtis Granderson, and now the Astros are following suit. We're seeing some moves of these, you know, wild card teams. These are obviously all division leaders and teams that are trying to pull away, you know, a couple more successful than others, but they're all still in the lead. So I'm not trying to give it any sort of knock to anybody. But I mean, do you think the second wild card is making some bit of that push of teams that might not have thought that August 1st was enough time to assess, and now with September 1st with a waiver deadline, now we can really figure out if we're really in this or not?
Yeah, I mean, like I think you're trying to say that, you know, teams are they're waiting a little longer until the September 1st deadline to make sure that, you know, they
like the Tigers, for instance, unloading a ton of people.
Out. Yeah, they're fully out. Yeah, no, I understand. You know, and It's funny you say that because you look at a team like the Astros and with Beltran and some of the other guys they have, they have, let's say they're heading into the World Series. Are you going to sit Beltran, or are you going to start Beltran and pinch hit for him or pinch run for him or defensive position for him later in games? Yeah, it's a small sample size for 3 or 4 games in the World Series. You're right, but for the top teams, it makes sense to try and add depth as much as you can throughout the top to bottom of the lineup. And for the teams like you said that are delaying till September and the second wild card and this and that, it does make things interesting. But the second wild card, do teams? I guess my question, without answering your question, my question back to you is: do teams really hold out for a second wild card? Like, you can say you made the playoffs, but like your fan base knows it's a one and done situation. Like, am I the only one? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, and everyone else in the world is like, oh, you're in the playoffs. No, it's a 1-game playoff. It's not. No. You're not in the playoffs. That doesn't count as a playoff. That's a 16 seed versus 16 team in the March Madness tournament that they play that they play and is irrelevant. Because they're going to play the number 1 seed and lose. No,
I agree with you. I definitely think you need to make the divisional series in order to say you made the playoffs. My point in asking is that we're starting to see this geographical shift of the teams that were in the second wild card waiting to unload. We haven't really seen teams that are in the hunt, trade to try to load up in this waivers period. And we didn't see a ton of action on either side on a buy or sell. So I guess my originally was, is this why we're seeing teams wait to sell? Could you see teams wait to buy? Taking crazy pills there. It's just more affecting the sell side.
No, I wasn't talking about you. I was just saying in general. It's like, you're right. I mean, I think it's. I don't think. I think people are going. And the Astros obviously proved that you can be patient to buy, but I'm sure at some point at the deadline, because there were talks that Verlander was going to go at the deadline, and the Tigers were just waiting. So I feel like the Tigers and the Astros must have known at that time, like, hey, in a month, if we're still not in it, we'll give you Verlander.
Yeah,
like I feel like there had to be some backdoor deal there, which whether obviously I'm no journalist, I can't confirm or deny, but like, I feel like the Astros being the team they were, having the lead they had, I feel like the pressure that the Red Sox with all the moves they made, the pressure that the Indians with the moves they made, I feel like the Astros felt like they had to do something, and I want to say that they decided, them and the Tigers, I'm sure, had some conversation about whether or not they would wait and do the regular deadline or wait for the waiver deadline. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because we've been talking about the waiver deadline for so long, but waiver deadline basically just means that the MLB has to approve it, correct?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. MLB's got to approve it. And it's not like waivers with hockey where they have to clear through every other team before they can send somebody down. Same thing actually with baseball when they designate somebody for assignment. Basically, it's Major League Baseball has to approve it and make sure that it's not some type of serious fire sale or anything like that. In this case, we're seeing players move, and the Astros obviously giving up prospects for it, but nothing seriously like as if there was total collusion within the trade, within this area. So, well, there might have been some backdoor conversations there. It's not something that's any like comes to mind, but it's not like basketball tampering. But you get what I mean by using that word.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to educate the listeners at home as well as myself, since you're Mr. Knowledgeable.
No, and that's why when I said the you, I meant both you, Greg, as well as the listener as well.
Oh, listen, no offense taken. No offense taken. I get it.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, that was just something like I noticed just a ton of moves. Really, and I've brought them up in podcasts before, but just the fact that we're seeing now major names that were deadline bait, that have now been moved in this waivers period. And I figured start off the show that way, but let's move to our usual business. Hot and cold teams. It's pretty obvious who we're going to go with, but I'm going to start with you, Greg. Who do you got for your hot team?
So I'm going to say the Arizona Diamondbacks, but I want to quickly talk about the Baltimore Orioles.
Sure.
Just because they're in the division, 8-2 in their last 10. For those who are keeping score at home, they did sweep the Red Sox in Fenway, which was awesome as a Red Sox fan. I'm so pumped that we got swept by the Orioles. They've put together a good little streak for themselves, and they're closing fast in the Yankees, and I would love nothing more than the Yankees to not make it. However, based on my predictions at the beginning of the year, I did predict the Yankees to make it, so I'm going to have to go with the Prophet Piatelli. Jordy, on this very podcast, remember, you laughed me out the door when you said the Yankees would never be the number 2 seed. So
I did.
For those of you who want to listen, go back.
Episode number 1.
I was right.
How far we've come.
I was right. Anyways, the Prophet for a reason. So my team is the Arizona Diamondbacks. My team is the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, we talked about it. We talked about them, I believe, last time we did a pod, Jordy, as a cold team. But they turn around now, 10 games in a row. And there would be more, but they won 3 out of 4 versus the Mets. So, they lost one of the games in there, but it would have been, so that means it's, 10 in a row.
12 in a row.
Yeah, I don't know, it would have been, but yeah, whatever. So, yeah, the point being is that they're 12 of the last 13. They've won 12 of the last 13. So, this is a team that, had lost 2 out of 3 of the Cubs, split with Houston, got swept by the Twins, and then they turn around and, it's the Mets, win 3 out of 4. Yeah, it's the Giants, but then they turn around and sweep the Dodgers and sweep the Rockies. And both those teams, Dodgers and Rockies, hey-o. The Dodgers being ahead of them, the Dodgers being the first place team, it's good to sweep your rival, and I'm sure September call-ups, the Dodgers might have sat some players without knowing the full scope of things. But the Rockies are for all intents and purposes, right there in the wild card hunt. They're what are they? A couple games back of
they're still the number 1 or number 2 wild card because they would be a half game up on Milwaukee. 72 and 70 and 64 are the Rockies. 72 and 65 are the Brewers.
Right,
but we talked about this. The gap has at least at one part been closed, and that second wild card spot's heating up in terms of its race.
Yeah, for sure. The National League and the Diamondbacks. I mean, those 2 teams that I mentioned, very good teams to beat. It makes you wonder, is this team for real? Can they string some things together? They do have pitching and Greinke, and their bullpen is obviously really good and has been all year. It's just a matter of, can they sustain? Can their offense keep it up? JD Martinez, can you really rely on him for a big playoff push here? But Paul Goldschmidt obviously has been the best player for them, and quite frankly in the National League at first base for a while. So, it's just one of those things where this is a team to look out for. 10 in a row, it's no small feat, and you can't really take anything away from them. But from my standpoint, my opinion, I think that they are going to make some noise and at least make some teams sweat here in the first round of the playoffs.
No, I agree with you absolutely. Especially when they're at home, they just seem to have that different level. They have by far the second best home record, the best being the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium, but they're 45 and 23 there. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with their pitching staff being so great. They've actually now moved ahead of the Dodgers in terms of runs scored and aren't close in runs against, so that run differential is still mountains away. But they've actually gotten to a lower standpoint of runs against than the Nationals, which I think actually speaks a lot to it because the Nationals have a lot more name brand talent. Whether or not some of them have been on and off the DL is part of it for Washington's standpoint, but they're still the third lowest in the National League in terms of runs against. But that run scored, I mean, moves and have all these different players that have really this great offense, which, I mean, they're ahead of the Dodgers now in runs scored. So you can't really be too upset with where they're going. And I think, well, especially with 10 wins in a row. But, excuse me, I think you can start to move a little more into a comfortable spot if you're an Arizona fan.
I hear it. I love it. Jordy, give me your hot team of the week.
All right, so my hot team is also pretty chalky. It's the Cleveland Indians. They have won 11 in a row, including a 11-1 shellacking of the Detroit Tigers today en route to an obvious sweep. All in Detroit. They also went into New York this week and swept the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, including a doubleheader. The Indians are red hot. Jose Ramirez back off the DL and has now 2 homers and 3 doubles in his today, which tied a major league record of 5 extra base hits in a single game. I mean, these guys, they're finding all their different players that need to just light up. Edwin Encarnacion having a slow start with 32 homers at this point, and that pitching staff is incredible. They did have that split series with the Red Sox last week at home, so at least there's some solace there for you, Greg, in terms of a great battle of pitching staffs. But I mean, they're starting to light it up on the scoreboard. When they played Kansas City last weekend, they did not let up a single run. They won that series 20-0. So, I mean, they're all things considered, Cleveland is looking to be in a great spot going forward in September, and it'll be fun seeing if they can ultimately take over the number 1 in the American League, as they're now only 3 games back of Houston.
Do you think this age-old question? Do you think these streaks of the Indians and the Diamondbacks are on, do you think they're peaking too soon? Do you think they're peaking too early before the playoffs? You know, you look back, obviously, in 2007, the Rockies, you know, they were able to create a run and sustain a run from September all the way up to losing to the Red Sox for the World Series, the Red Sox second World Series in 3 years. But that's neither here nor there. Do you think that these runs are you let me get away with that one? I love it. All right. Do you think these runs are?
Well, it's technically in 4 years, Greg. If we do math, 2004, and then you missed 2 years.
We don't count those years. We don't count those years. But we don't count those years.
I was gonna allow it, but to answer your question, you see this, and the perfect example, at least from within the last year in sports, is all the different winning streaks we saw in hockey. The Flyers had a great one, and a few other hockey teams did as well. But the Penguins ultimately come away with a cup. They themselves went on a great run in the playoffs, and the age-old got hot at the right time. If they do what the Rockies did, especially because some would argue that they won too early when the Red Sox themselves had an awesome getting hot at the right time in that series against the Cleveland Indians, full circle. That being said, I think if you had to pick one of the two for it to be more likely to happen to, I'd definitely pick the Diamondbacks. I think the Indians are a little more built for the new playoff model. Mm-hmm. They were this close to winning all they really did was get better. They added Edwin. They still have a lot of that same pitching staff. Some of them are now starting to really look healthy and back to their old selves. Really led by Corey Kluber. That being said, it's hard to think that they would not fall into some type of skid. Maybe not losing 10 in a row or anything like that, but maybe finishing the season going forward, around 500, maybe a little under 500 baseball, and then refinding themselves. Of course, there are dangers in that. Using the hockey metaphor once again, the Blackhawks saw that and got swept by the eventual Western Conference champions in the Predators, and they had a very similar ending. They looked like they were unstoppable and had a really bad end of the regular season. But long-winded answer to your question, the Indians have great pitching, great hitting, and are fantastic on the road, which is where it matters in the playoffs. So I think you can feel a lot better about them. They just got to make sure that they nosedive going into the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's Sorry, I'm a big, win for a cause or team's identity, things like that, kind of guy. For me, the big thing that I often go off of is like, you know, the story. You have two exactly same talented teams in a day. Which one's going to come out on top because of whether they're more motivation playing for something, blah blah blah. The Cubs last year with their streak, and the Royals before losing in Game 7. The Red Sox in 2013 with the bombings, and you can go on and on. But for me, it's one of those things where the Indians have that motivation. They had that Game 7 loss last year. They were basically a rain delay away from winning the World Series. Yeah, Andrew Miller might be banged up, blah, 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 but I think they have that motivation. My only question is they basically replaced Mike Napoli with Edwin Encarnacion. Do you think Edwin Encarnacion can give that same sort of production spark, life, party at Napoli's house after the game type of mentality that they had last year?
Yeah, that's actually a great question because earlier this year I was with a lot of Cleveland people on a bachelor party. One buddy from college, from the land as they call it,
Humble
and
brag.
they hated, not to brag, but they hated Edwin. And this is Memorial Day, and he was still slumping a little bit. He's batting 252, so the average isn't there. The 32 homers though, 82 ribbies. You can't knock the production too terribly. He's been better later in the season than he had been, to start. But your question is, I mean, he's 34 years old, replacing Mike Napoli, a much different guy in the locker room. If he can turn it on in the playoffs, we could see great production there. But I think the one guy you also got to remember who has been up and down this year, who is that bigger name in the lineup, not necessarily the home run leader, and he's not this year, but that's Francisco Lindor, having an okay year. He's not where basically we thought Jose Ramirez would be what Lindor was going to do. And Lindor is certainly not doing terribly this season, but I think if he gets it going, Jose Ramirez keeps it up, and Edwin can pepper in here and there, it'll be an interesting run for the Cleveland Indians, especially with that pitching staff, and if they stay hot going into the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's something to certainly look out for. And I mean, honestly, I think the feel-good story is going to have to be Houston and what they've gone through, obviously, in the Astros. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if they win it. I mean, they were going to make a deep run before all this happened, but, a lot of people are comparing.
Getting Verlander is super helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot
of people are comparing it to the 13 Red Sox with the marathon bombings and, the fact that they were.
You used that, and when you talked about the Indians last year, I was about to call them the 2014 Spurs. that unfortunate who a free throw away from winning the NBA title, and then they had the 3-pointer from Ray Allen. We won't talk about him, but yeah, I mean, I think the Indians. It'll be fun to leave. Unfortunately, to leave your Red Sox out of the ALCS. That would be a fun ALCS to watch. A lot of fun pitching, or a lot of good pitching. Great hitters. But yeah, like I said, if you see these guys, I mean, Jay Bruce has done pretty well for him as soon as he came over. Lindor, like I said, he's not doing bad. He's batting 270. Would have wanted to see that average be higher, but 26 homers you can't really argue against. Not a ton of ribbies, so there's one knock to him as well. But if they can get to where we thought they were going to be, coming into the year and the hype there, I think it'd be a fun battle of feel-good stories. But definitely the Harvey relief, and we'll get back to this past weekend for the Astros. But worth noting, they did sweep the Mets, a doubleheader yesterday, and then once again they did win today.
Yeah, and that's my sort of they're being compared very much to the 13 Red Sox, and like I said, they were a team that was going to make a deep run beforehand, and it's just one of those things that I think it's going to be interesting story to watch between those teams. Like you said, those two teams, it seemed to be on paper somewhat very similar, obviously, in terms of having offense, having pitching, having the bullpen. But then it comes down to, which team, which fan base, not the fans, have any impact, but which team and which clubhouse can get rallied around quickly enough to make it deep and win the whole thing here. But let's move on here.
Yeah, cold teams. You want me to start, or you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I can go. I don't discriminate. I was trying to pick a team that was actually in the hunt and a team that had a shot. And I was going to go with a team like the Royals or something like that. I mean, you could even talk about the Dodgers, who 2 of 8, but again, that I think has to 2 of 8 in their last 10. But I think that again has to do with the fact that
call-ups.
Yeah, September call-ups. They're 10 games ahead of the Nationals for first place in the National League. So they all have that locked up in the first number 1 seed and all that stuff. So home field throughout. So I think they're good there. I'm honestly going to go with the San Francisco Giants in the race for last place. The Giants are now 2 and 8 in their last 10. Your boy,
2 games up. Actually a game and a half.
Your boy Bumgarner got destroyed today by the Cardinals. And quite frankly, Jordy, it's only 1 game in the loss column. So the reality is the Phillies are only 1 loss worse than the Giants as of right now. So no, wait, they have less losses than the Giants. So if we're being honest,
right. Wait, we're doing the math bad. They're only a half a game out.
If we're being honest, the Phillies, the race for last place, the Phillies are not in last currently in the entire Major League.
We did it! You beautiful bitches. You beautiful sons of bitches. Oh, my God. Well, here's the thing, too. The Phillies have scored more runs and have allowed less. It's now 4 less, but it's less. Goddamn San Diego Padres, who somehow win more. They've won 62 games, but that's a great pick with the Giants. It really, really, I mean, shit. You would have thought, we had them battling it out with the Dodgers for first place, and obviously you had the Bumgarner injury that really just seemed to derail the whole thing, but what a terrible turnaround of a season for them.
And listen, I honestly think, quite frankly, no one really cares about this last place race except for you and I, but and probably most Phillies fans, but ever since the Panda came back to San Francisco, they've just tanked in the tube, so great move by the Red Sox. Terrible move by the Giants. And see you later, Panda.
Yeah, the Phillies still care. They won an extra innings against the Miami Marlins, who do somehow have a 3% chance of making the playoffs according to ESPN stats. So, the Phillies care. Giants might not. But that's an interesting pick. I actually am going to go with the Royals for mine. Again, a type pick, but they are 3-7 in their last 10 games. They were right in the thick of it for the wild card, and fall into the back of the pack in terms of that second wild card spot. They're sitting 3.5 behind the Twins, so certainly not in terms of coming back to it, but the run production isn't there. The pitching's really started to balloon. Jason Vargas not having a great second half, like some players that I'm sure you love to talk about. The Royals have really started to, I don't want to say show their true colors, because I would have thought they'd lock up second place pretty easily. But they're starting to show what some of us had feared, towards that midway mark of the season.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's one of those things that certainly surprised us all. We thought for sure there'd be a big bounce back year from last year for this team, but turns out the magic might be gone.
Yeah. But if we're gonna go with a few others, just of those basement you can't miss the 6-game losing streak from the Oakland Athletics, despite somehow having, or not somehow, but having those ball mashers and Chris Davis, the Ryan Healy's, and Rajay Davis and everybody out there. But really within it, a lot of this in the wild card races, a lot of teams are playing right around that 6-4, 5-5 in their last 10 games.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that second wild card is really making things interesting because there's a lot of teams that are still in the hunt. There are a lot of teams that not only for the divisions, but most of the divisions are pretty much locked up. But a lot of teams are even the Pirates are 7.5 out in the National League, and 7.5 games may be insurmountable, but come a pretty good run here in September, you never know what can happen. And the American League, the American League, you have Tampa Bay Rays, Royals, Rangers, Mariners, Orioles, Angels, Twins, Yankees, all within 4 games of each other. So, quite frankly, it's just a mess, the American League, and it's going to be significant baseball for a long time here.
Yeah, and that's probably the most exciting part is that, like you just said, if we're still in the old 4 teams making the playoffs, the National League is basically almost, because the Diamondbacks are so quote unquote so far up. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot of fun baseball ahead, and it'll be a lot of good sports on TV with football coming back as well.
Hey, just get those out there. The Phillies are not mathematically eliminated, are they?
Or who?
Are the Phillies mathematically eliminated?
I'm sorry, that you cut out both times. Which team mathematically eliminated?
Are the Phillies mathematically eliminated from the playoffs?
Technically, no. I think they are almost officially out for. Yeah, they're definitely out of the division race, but they're not out of the wild card. Technically, they would be.
I don't know.
They're 19. They're 19 and a half games behind the Brewers. So potentially this week they're completely gonzo, but who knows? I mean, we've seen other leads blown.
So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a small chance. And who knows with Reese and Nick and all these great guys, who knows what they're gonna do. We have high hopes. Phillies fans will get that nod. Let's move on to player awards, though.
Wait, real quick before we do that. Are you rooting for, as much as I am, my man Giancarlo or Mike Stanton to get to 61 home runs?
Love that. I would love for him to.
I want him to get that so much so that there's no asterisks and all this bullshit and this all Babe Ruth bullshit. F that guy, that fat piece of shit. I want Giancarlo Stanton to get this record so hard. I mean, Roger Maris had it, yeah, but I want him to get 62. I want him to beat that motherfucker Babe Ruth so bad. I just can't wait for this guy to just keep mashing the ball. I mean, we're talking what? Yeah. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 home runs in the last 10 games. I mean, come on. You got it, buddy. You got 1 month to hit 12 home runs or 11 home runs, whatever it is. You got 52. So he's got 10 home runs, 1 month to hit 10 home runs. Come on, he can do it, right?
Yeah, he absolutely can. He had one point where he hit like 7 in 7 games or something like that. I forget what the actual number was. I mean, he could definitely do it. Let's look at if we really quickly want to do a bad radio, but let's look at how many times they play the Phillies throughout the rest of the season. The Braves. I mean, these are some teams with some shit pitching. Oh, and they go to Colorado. Oh my God, Greg. All right. So they play the Phillies next weekend. They play, in 2 weeks.
Sorry, is that at home? Is that at home or in Philly?
In Philly, and it's easy for him to hit a home run there.
Hitter's Ballpark.
Hitter's Ballpark. They play in Atlanta next week, which, Atlanta has shit pitching, so regardless if Hitter's Ballpark or not. Home against the Mets, home against the Brewers, and their pitching's not so good.
Come on, those are easy.
No.
If he doesn't break it against the Mets, come on.
Greg, he could break it in one weekend in Colorado. He could go 12 for 12 with 12 home runs, I think. They play 3 weeks from today, or 3 weeks from tomorrow, excuse me, starting Monday, September 25th through that Wednesday. They're in Colorado. Then they close the season out with 4 games against the Braves. He's definitely getting it. This is happening. Let's lock it up.
I want it so bad. There's nothing more that I want for this season than for him to get over 62. For him to beat that threshold, I want that so bad. So then we can everyone in ESPN and all these fucking old baseball writers can finally put the whole Barry Bonds asterisk nonsense to bed. Because, in my opinion, what Bonds did was unbelievable, magical. I loved it when I was a young kid watching it. Obviously, he had some enhancers or whatever. Never been caught. I'm just gonna say that, but I would love Giancarlo to beat that number more than anything else. I honestly think I'm rooting for that more than I am the Red Sox right now.
Yeah, that'd be pretty exciting. I mean, especially like if some of these races do start to lock themselves up, especially in that last week. We'll definitely see the second wild card spots be hanging around season. But with really only that, and that's really a matter of like 4 or 5 games to look at. Something like this is what we need. What we need as baseball fans. It's what baseball needs. It's hashtag good for baseball. It'll be
make baseball fun. It'll
be fun to see. Make baseball fun again.
Jesus Christ. You know what? Like, you know what I need more than anything else? Remember how they had the Barry Bonds live looking at every at bat? I need that for Giancarlo Stanton. And even if I'm watching New England sports and that's in the Red Sox game, I need them to update me. And I need the little bottom corner screen, just like they used to have with Bonds and when he was doing his thing. I need that for the rest of the year.
The live look-ins? Oh, yeah. Oh, man. We're going to, I wish I had that type of technology. But let's move on. Those unfamiliar with the format of the show, if you joined on through football, we're glad to have you. We look at the teams. Then we give out individual player awards. We look at batting, pitching, and rookies. Name them after movie characters. This one is the Roy Hobbs MVP of the week. Who do you got?
I have my man Anthony Rizzo.
Oh, great pick.
10 RBIs.
Great week for him.
Great week. 10 RBIs, hitting 440, on base percentage of 500, especially for a team that, 7-3, really trying to solidify the Central there. They're starting to get hot at the right time, starting to put some pieces together. 3.5 up on the Brewers, but they're starting to make some noise. And after losing 3 out of 4 to the Phillies, hey Phils.
2 out of 3. 2 out of 3.
Sorry, hey Phils. Either way, the Cubs are really on a roll, and it really starts with Rizzo. I mean, as Rizzo goes, as Bryant goes, the team goes, and the fact that Rizzo is starting to find his groove a little bit here is the reason why he's my hot player of the week.
No, that's a great pick, and as a Cubs fan, you have to feel pretty happy with the fact that they're now 3rd in baseball in terms of runs scored. Obviously, last year they had that incredible run offensively, but the big knock with them at the All-Star break was where was it all? And like you said, where Rizzo and Bryant go. Brizzo, I believe, was their shipping company that David Ross now works for. Up the team does too, and Anthony Rizzo leading the charge. I found it interesting, just 1 homer, but it shows that he doesn't need it to be the most productive guy on the team, which is great. It's great for the Cubs, and it's great to see them kind of find their spot as they were expected to.
Yeah, I mean 1 homer, but you also got to recognize 5 doubles, a triple. I mean, that's a big dude getting around the bases, getting a double and a triple. Yeah. And only 2 strikeouts in a week is unbelievable. So he's just seeing the ball really well right now. He's putting it on all sides of the ballpark, and if you have anyone,
that's a great pick.
If you think anyone else is a hot player of the week, you're just a fool.
Well, so my guy is somebody that is somebody that was a fool. Greg, remember when Gary Sanchez got into the home run derby?
Mm-hmm.
Remember there was a guy who was really pissed off about it?
Yes.
Do you remember his name? Because I don't think a lot of people remember his name.
The only reason I remember his name is because he's on the Tampa Bay Rays.
That man. And Mr. Morrison this past week, Greg, I'll see your 10 RBIs from Rizzo, and I'll raise you to 12. I'll raise it to 6. I will lower your doubles to 1, but we'll forget that. But he batted 400, had the great slugging week, a slugging percentage of over 1160 would be the number. His OPS at 1604, a great power week from a guy who really, it's not a too little, too late thing because he'd been having a pretty good season overall at the point that he called out Gary Sanchez. But kind of just still under the radar to the average baseball fan, putting his name out there as the slugger on a team that has unfortunately fallen out from a fun race. They're a very young team, so they're not going anywhere in the next couple of years. But nice to see a guy that at least had the balls to try to call out why they would put in player in an exhibition event that's meant to drive television ratings actually play the way he has talk the talk.
Yeah, he's an ugly little player too, so it's not
Yeah, you're right, he's an ugly fuck.
hey, I mean,
so it's another guy that
Tampa's 4 games out, and that Twins, Angels. I mean, I said the Angels were gonna make a little run too now that Trout's back, but that's neither here nor there. Twins, Angels, Orioles, Rays. As the prophet, I need 2 AL East teams to make or 3 AL East teams to make the wild card or to make the playoffs, because that's what I said in the beginning of the year. So I'm rooting for Tampa Bay, Baltimore, and unfortunately the Skanks. But it's one of those things where they're not out. They're certainly not out. 4 games is not a lot, and they're a team that
that's true.
Like you said, yeah, they're young. They have the pitching, but you never know. They play in a dome. Yeah. Stranger things have happened. They're playing the Twins. They play the Red Sox. They play the Yankees. They play the Orioles. They play teams in their division, so there's a chance that they beat up on the Orioles and the Yankees and have a chance to jump them just by beating up on them.
That's very true. They have much better pitching than Baltimore, and if Baltimore's pitching keeps up the solid streak, I'd say they've been on. I wouldn't say great, but they could stay up there. But you're right that Tampa Bay could easily claw their way back into that spot.
Anyways, great pick for Player of the Week. I'm going to stick with my man Rizzo. It's funny how you're the National League guy, I'm the American League guy, and all day I've been National League, and all day you've been American League. Funny how that works.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how that works. Sometimes we have our opposite weeks. Let's move on to National League, or not National League, to our Billy Chappell Pitcher of the Week. And Greg, I'll start with you. Who do you got for this award?
So this is a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of good choices. Obviously, Carlos Carrasco with Cleveland comes to mind. Having pitched 2 unbelievable games for them, only allowing one run in 2 games. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say Jimmy Nelson out there in Milwaukee.
Oh, damn it! I was gonna snag that. All right, let's get the lowdown.
Yeah, I mean he's a guy that for them and their rotation is certainly in a big part of their rotation is what I'm trying to say. But he's goes deep into most of his starts. 17 strikeouts in the last week, which was unbelievable. 2 wins for them, only 2 earned runs, and he really is helping them with this win streak that they're on, and helping them beating Washington and beating the Dodgers. He beat Washington 1-0. Was that him today? Yeah, he beat Washington 1-0, and then beat the Dodgers 3-2. So for him and this team, I think he is a huge part of it, and certainly helps out in a big way.
Definitely. Great pick there. Definitely worth noting, Carrasco also up there in strikeout leads with his 16 Ks. Corey Kluber also having a great week, like we talked about before. But my guy, though, Greg, guy who played 2 sports in college. He played for a team that a lot of people a few blocks north of me at Temple University. Not happy with his team because they smoked the Owls yesterday, that being Fighting Irish, their former wide receiver, Jeff Samardzija of the San Francisco Giants.
Wow.
He 1-0, a no decision in his other start this week. Was able to basically be the only shining light of your cold team of the week. 16 innings it pitched, only 5 hits and a walk that equates out to a .44 whip, 1 earned run and 1 actual run, being to a .56 ERA. This is what they signed him for, and it's nice to see that he's still just absolute gas. 14 Ks. When the season really is lost at this point in a really off year for the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, interesting pick, and certainly Jeff Samardzija, better known for his football career than his baseball one. But I it's
with the great Brady Quinn at quarterback.
Anyways, keep it on baseball, right? Maybe no. Listen, that team was one Reggie Bush push away from going all the way there, right?
That's very true. Yeah, that 05 Notre Dame team, and then again, I think in 06 as well. But we'll save that for the fun bee. Yeah, no, I mean it's an interesting pick because they're so far out of it. Other guys I could have potentially gone with. Tanner Roark had a pretty nice week. Corey Kluber, obviously. Lance Lynn had a good week as well. But you got to give credit where credit's due, and doing that over 16 innings in a week where pretty much out of it, and you got to give credit where credit's due there.
Love it. Jordy, give me your rookie of the week.
My rookie of the week, the Henry Rowengartner rookie of the week. I am going to save your one guy and my one guy for Phillies talk, and I'm sure you're going to pick yours for I'm going to go with Troy Mancini out of Baltimore. 10 for 30 this week. That's a .333 batting average. Struck out a little more than you want to, and only 2 extra base hits, a double and a homer. But definitely we talked about the Baltimore team having a nice run, 8-2 in their last 10, and nice to see young players helping to lead that. You could also throw a couple nods to some of the guys down in Atlanta, Ozzy Albies and Dansby Swanson, the 2 highly touted middle infielders. But I'm going to give it to Mancini because of the fact that he's helping to lead a team right back into the hunt.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about Dansby since Pod 1, and he's a frequent award winner of the Roy Hobbs Rookie of the Week. But
Henry Rowengartner Rookie of the Week.
Way off. Sorry, Henry Rowengartner Rookie of the Week. You can cut that out.
Get it right.
Cut that out and edit it and change it so it sounds like I was right from the jump. All right.
No, they need to know. They need to know that you have some mortality to you.
I don't think that's the right word, but
a prophet. You're a mortal prophet.
You're
a mortal prophet. There's some error.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna go ahead. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna give it to the AL Rookie of the Year, Andrew Benintendi. This was a no-brainer for me. He 10 hits in the last week. Including 8 walks, hitting .417, 3 stolen bases. only 2 strikeouts is a big step for him, especially at a time when Jackie Bradley Jr. got hurt. But I got to give a nod over here to Ian Happ, the center fielder rookie for the Cubs. We talked about Rizzo, but this kid in his own right, in the last 7 days, has a 375 batting average, 6 RBIs, 2 walks, and a homer. He's just really him and Rizzo, and I guess the whole team. Like I said, as Rizzo and Bryant go, the whole team goes, and he's certainly a guy that is similar in terms of hitting his stride at the right time, getting his groove going. He was 2 for 4 today with the only home run and RBI for the Cubs. So he's a guy that I think deserves a nod here as well.
Absolutely, that's a great pick.
Ian Happ.
It's interesting. A lot of rookies getting a lot more playing time. We can go over the Phillies guys in a few minutes. Your boy Rafael Devers also having a decent week at 280, but still getting more and more ABs. So it's nice seeing not just with September call-ups that we're getting a lot of rookie action, but that baseball's very young and that we're definitely trending that way.
I love it. And it you see it all over the top teams, the playoff teams. The Dodgers have their young cast. The Red Sox have their young cast. I mean, even Altuve is pretty young. So, I mean, Lindor in Cleveland, it's young all over the place in the Major League Baseball, and it's a fun, exciting time.
Absolutely. One unfortunate nod on the rookie end. Paul DeJong did not have a great week. Probably one of his first hiccups at 5 for 27. That's below the Mendoza line. So worth noting there, but figured we'd throw that in as well.
Speaking of just Mendoza, woof.
Jesus, let's not throw any personal jabs at other people.
I was just talking about her skills as a play-by-play analyst.
Yeah, not a fan.
Man.
I don't know.
Listen, I was all on board in the beginning of the year. I really was. I was a big fan. And then I was watching Red Sox-Yankees coverage, and she just loves Aaron Judge, even though he's terrible. She loves the young Yankees, even though they're terrible. Gives no love to the Red Sox. It's like we already get enough of that with Aaron Boone. We don't need you hopping on the Yankees gap-tooth love of Aaron Judge for no reason, for a guy who's done nothing and doesn't deserve the AL MVP because he's sucked since the All-Star break. But moving on.
Not so good. Well, let's move on.
Let's
get a quick Phillies update. Since we last talked, the Phillies hosted the Cubs, won 2 out of 3. Then looked like it was going well when they hosted the Braves earlier in the week, won on Monday, and then had a rain out Tuesday, so a traditional doubleheader during the day on Wednesday. Really, really bad sweep there. But they go down to Miami, win 3 of 4, including a 10-9 loss and a wild one in Miami last night. 3-1 win this afternoon, where Nick Williams was the hero instead of Rhys Hoskins, not Rice, as you and I once at one point called him, Greg. Our boy Rice-A-Roni, that's his new name, at least for us. T-shirts might be coming, who knows? But it's looking nice, at least at this point. The young guns on the mound are starting to come together, and with guys like Hoskins, who has been great in left field, and Williams, doing his thing in right field, to see everything. The Phillies still, interestingly enough, they've been away since September 1st, obviously down in Miami. They haven't really called up a ton of people. I read an article on Comcast Sportsnet that talked about how a lot of the guys they would have called up ASAP have already been called up. So we'll see. I mean, you still have guys like J.P. Crawford, who hasn't been yet, Dylan Cousins, who hasn't been. The Iron Pigs played their last game today, so some of those guys are going to be sitting around doing nothing. You have a few other pitchers that you probably want to wait to call up, so you don't want to necessarily yank them if they were on the 40-man roster. But we'll see how it all goes in terms of how September goes down. They play next week against the Mets at Citi Field, which we've talked about with Stevie G, but I still need to make my way up there. I think surprisingly, they didn't have a ton of weekend games up there, and we've talked about this before as well, but the Mets and the Phillies, both teams travel very well because of the fact that the two stadiums are only about 2.5 hours apart, maybe a little less than that, depending on traffic. And, if there aren't really a ton of, it's hard for a working man like myself to get up to Queens and check out their new digs.
Jordy. Listen, as great as it is to hear you talk about how poor you are and how hard it is for you to get up to Citi Field, we all know that you're working hard, you're a working man, blah, blah, blah. I know you're trying to get free tickets from people who listen to the pod to send you up.
What I was going for.
To send you up to New York. To set you up to New York to watch the game. Let's get to the real reason why people are listening to the Phillies update. Yes, Reese is the story of the year right now. However, let's look at the rest of the schedule and see if they can beat and overcome the Giants for the last wild card spot. Okay, at the Mets for 3. Do they win 2 out of 3? Yes or no?
I'm gonna say yes. Right, they win tomorrow. They lose Tuesday. They win Thursday.
Oh, beat DeGrom. Oh, lose DeGrom. Okay, got it.
Lose DeGrom.
4-game set versus Washington versus the Nationals on the road. Do they at least split? Scherzer, Jackson, Strasburg, Gonzalez.
They beat Jackson, so they lose. They do not split. They lose 3 out of 4.
Ooh, okay. 3-game set versus Miami at home. Remember, Giancarlo's going for 62.
I feel so bullish after this weekend. I think they take 2 of 3.
Nice, love it. Versus Oakland at home, go.
Sweep.
Love it. I'm a big fan of that pick. Then they have a 4-game set with the Dodgers, who, as we talked about earlier in the podcast, are resting a lot of their guys, are sitting a lot of their guys. At that point, they'll be so far ahead. That's September 18th to the 21st. They'll be so far ahead, they probably won't have anyone playing. 4-game series. Do they split?
I'm going to say they split. I feel like right now there's only one game that has a projected start, and that's Nola versus Yu Darvish, which I feel like is a loss, even though Aaron Nola's pitched very well as of recently. But not too sure they could win more than 2 games there.
And then we head to Atlanta, 3 games on the road in Atlanta. Jesus, you guys are at home for most of the rest of the year. That's pretty impressive. Anyways.
That's pretty nice. They sweep Atlanta. They play really well against the Braves. They have their number, which has been shitty.
Sweep Atlanta. Okay, I like it. Listen, if this actually happens, we're just gonna go out here on a limb here. You said 2 out of 3 from the Mets. Then you win 1 against so we're at 3 wins right now. You win 1 versus Washington. Then you go 2 out of 3 against Miami. This is all according to Jordy. Then you sweep the Orioles. Then you go.
No, it's Oakland. Oakland's fucking shit.
Sweep Oakland. Then you win 3 out of 4, or split with the Dodgers, 2 out of 2. Then you sweep Atlanta. At this point, you might as well forget the worst record in the major league. That 20 games out is certainly a little closer.
Yeah, you're getting me on a day that the Phillies just won a 12-inning battle, and they were this close to 4 games sweeping Miami. You're getting me on the best possible day of the season when they're in fucking last place by 2 games. You were getting me so happy. The only way I could be more bullish about this is if I was like drunk off my ass, which I'm not. But you're getting me on it's a happy Jordy. You saw the Phillies nice weekend, so I'm very happy. Realistically, they probably go. How many games do they have left? Let's say it's 25 games. Realistically, they probably go, I'd say, close to 12-13, a little bit under 500 baseball, I would say. In part because you do play the Dodgers so late. You play the Nationals one final time so late. They're probably resting some starters. But they are playing teams that their starting pitching isn't that great. That's why we're talking about Stanton potentially breaking this record. So that's why I feel like they're a little closer to 500 than their current record shows them to be.
26 games, but you were close.
26 games. I would say then confidently, I would say 12-14 in their down the stretch.
That might be good enough to not be in last place.
Hopefully. That'll be a constant weekly update then. Are the Phillies in last?
I'm hoping the Phillies go for 300, go at least 500, if not over. Yeah, I want them to make it interesting. I want the city of Philly to have a glimmer of hope, only to be crushed in the last couple of days. Just because I love when Philly fans get riled up and when they get so into things.
Greg, at that point,
you guys are just so used to mediocrity. You're so used to losing that it's like any glimmer of hope you cling on to, like this whole trust the process nonsense. You guys had no shot last year of doing anything good. Your boy got hurt. You had some white guy get the Rookie of the Year. Come on, get out of here.
Malcolm Brogdon, who might be coming, or I guess now the trade's official, but he was the backup. You guys didn't get Kyrie.
I heard Brogdon. That. Anyways, the point is,
but at this point, or at that point of the year, Greg, I can say this confidently now that we're at the last Sunday without an NFL game until February. Pennsylvania is back.
Oh,
welcome, Greg.
My God,
you're coming down. You're coming down in a couple weeks. Feel welcome by Pennsylvania.
Oh boy. Anyways, moving on here. Keeping it to baseball. You're one loss away from the Giants, so I'm rooting for that. Anyways, back. Let's get to a relevant team, a team in the mix. Let's talk about my Red Sox.
Yeah.
Jordy,
let's get your lowdown.
It's been a roller coaster week, honestly. Not only from the move, but this whole Red Sox thing. They split. We'll go back. They split. We'll go a week ago. We'll just go a week ago. They swept the Blue Jays. Started off unbelievable. Felt great about it. Right after being swept by the Orioles. Okay, 2 division rival teams. Lose. Now we're playing the Yankees here. Okay, lose 2 out of 3, and now they're losing 9-1 right now. Chris Sale getting shellacked by the Yankees. Losing 9-1. Sale has been awful today. They're about to lose 3 out of 4 to the Yankees. Honestly, this team, I'm not worried because I still think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the World Series strictly because kind of like, they talk about Ohio State and last year was a year away. Like they were good last year, but they were a year away from their players actually making a deep run for football. The Red Sox, I think, are a year or 2 away. They got their young guys, Benintendi, Betts, Bogarts. I mean, even Jackie Bradley Jr. Now they got Devers. They called up the third baseman. I think they're a year or 2 away from having all that talent, have that experience of like, okay, now we've experienced it. We went with Ortiz. We relied on him. Now we had a season where our pitching was really good. Our hitting was mediocre. We're the only team in the major league without a grand slam. Explain to me that. How are you the first place in your division, yet the only team without a grand slam in the major leagues? Explain to me that, Jordy. You can't, because they have no power on their lineup. This is a team that most of their guys are locked down. Most of their core guys are locked down at least through 2020. So, from that standpoint, I mean, they even have Kimbrel till 2019. So, they are a team that in a couple of years or next year or 2 years, whatever it may be, they're going to completely run away with it, just like the Cubs did. But, I think that this year they're definitely making the playoffs. It's going to be a roller coaster. But quite frankly, I'm not sure they have what it takes to put it all together just because, Cleveland is too motivated by the fact they were a rain delay away from winning, and Houston is now motivated by this terrible, terrible, terrible thing that happened, as well as the fact that, Houston doesn't get a lot of chances to root for anything good. So, more power to them. I just think it's going to be a tough road ahead of them, and their schedule isn't easy too. Looking at it, they got Toronto again, Tampa Bay, who's
I was about to ask you, how do you feel about this down the stretch?
I mean, Toronto, Tampa Bay, both playoff teams. Oakland, you just talked about Oakland. They go to Tampa, where it might as well be Red Sox or the South, just because all the snowbirds down there. Then they play Baltimore, 3 games on the road. That's an interesting series to me because at that point, that's in 2 weeks. At that point, 3 weeks, I guess. At that point, Baltimore is going to be a team that, whether or not they're still in it, the Red Sox never play well against them top to bottom, year to year. I mean, if you remember, Jordy, at the beginning of this year, remember we were talking about who's the guy with the big ugly ears? Third baseman.
Who, Manny Machado?
Yeah, we were talking about Manny Machado, like they were throwing behind him. Remember that whole ordeal in September, October?
Oh yeah.
That was like
Forgot about that.
That felt like a lifetime ago, right? This Baltimore team was so irrelevant for so long. Now they're in it. That's going to be an interesting series. Then they play Cincinnati, some random ass series against Cincinnati. Then they play Toronto again. So the good news is they get Toronto twice. They get Tampa Bay twice. So that's huge. They get to beat up on those teams. Cincinnati's been out of it, but again,
I was saying, and Cincinnati.
but you're going to the National League, so there's no DH. You got to play Hanley Ramirez. Your hitter's got to hit. It's a whole thing. Then they Toronto again at home, and then they have a 4-game series against Houston at home, which at that point I'm sure both teams will have locked up a playoff spot, and Houston, will, I'm sure at that point, have the number 1 overall seed locked up. So I doubt those two teams will be playing a lot of their starters. So hopefully the Red Sox can take advantage of some rookies and gain some strong experience going into the playoffs. But I'm feeling good about it. It's just one of those things where the series that scares me the most is in Baltimore for a 3-game series, and I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to. I'm so happy that the Yankees suck, despite winning 3 out of 4. But I'm so happy the Yankees suck. I'm so happy that Aaron Judge with the little gap teeth is brutal, the worst player in baseball right now. And I'm so pumped that the Red Sox are doing well. And if only Sale could get rid of his terrible Septembers.
A little live look into the Yankees-Red Sox game. Aaron Judge hit his first home run against the Red Sox tonight. How do you feel about that?
I mean, he's still irrelevant to me. He's the worst player. He's the worst player since the All-Star break.
Love it.
He's the worst player since the All-Star break. Tell me I'm wrong.
Oh, but he had never hit one against the Red Sox.
Yeah, well, his little gap tooth finally needs to hit one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, listen.
He's Burrell against the Mets. He gets killed by the Red Sox. He's not a Red Sox killer.
Yeah, I mean, it's because they're not afraid of him. They go inside. They know how to pitch to him. You're talking about a guy who, until the first 2 months of this year, he was so bad last year. Everyone was saying he's too big. He hit 190 last year. He was brutal. Everyone's talking about Gary Sanchez. Gary Sanchez can't block a ball to save his life behind the plate. How's that going to work in the playoffs if they make it? The Red Sox are running all over this guy. But, again, can't say anything. This is the last series against the Yankees, and the Red Sox lost 3 out of 4. So I can't really say anything right now. But baseball is more fun when the Red Sox and Yankees are rivals. Like I said in the first ever podcast, I've just been right about everything so far with this. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on to the fan favorite section, the stadium snacks. And I've got a pretty interesting one. Speaking of Houston and everything that's going on there, shout out to my 2 buddies, Ari and Jeff. I know you guys are both safe, but really happy to hear that. And I know that you guys have been helping out a lot of the unfortunate victims down there, and really happy and proud of you guys for what you're doing. And I hope that everybody in Houston stays safe through all these rough times. But my stadium snack is going to be from Minute Maid Park, another stadium I need to get out to. But they have a Spam grilled cheese sandwich, which is incredibly interesting to hear. We of course talked about the Spam on the Hawaiian dog a couple weeks ago, Greg. But looks like an interesting sandwich. Instead of the traditional ham on a grilled cheese, you're going tab of of Spam here. Apparently gets good reviews though. I mean, what's your initial take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've ever had or enjoyed Spam. However, I know it's a huge thing. I know a ton of people love it, and if you're not, like the Red Sox sell a lobster roll. If you're not catering to the people in your ballpark, you're not really doing things right.
Exactly. Yeah, it was an interesting part of the Hawaiian dog. Apparently, it's huge there, which on this list I'm reading it off of, apparently very inspired by that type of cuisine. I'm not, to be honest, I don't know if that's a big demographic in Houston, but all power to you. It's apparently getting great reviews. if you do get a chance to head down to Minute Maid Park, which did have its first games yesterday since the hurricane, definitely go check that out, at least from what we're reading here. Greg, do you have a stadium snack?
No, I honestly can say I do not.
Yeah.
Nothing like the tradition of ordering pizza and drinking champagne night one in a new apartment. So that was my extent of a stadium snack. Although Lady Gaga was in town this weekend and she was playing at Fenway, so that was interesting to be able to hear that.
Do you think that they have some type of glitter snack there during a Lady Gaga concert, or is that more of a? That's more Kesha, isn't it?
I was gonna say, or I'm sure because Lady Gaga wore the meat suit, right? She was one who wore the.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the meat suit.
So I'm sure they got something interesting going on between them.
Something like that. Yeah. I hope she comes up with a list of concession snacks, and they're just ridiculous. That would be level. You want to be a next level artist. We're talking about Taylor Swift and reputation and all this crap. No, you need to cater your concerts in the music industry. Let's stick to baseball. Bleacher Creatures. I'm going to stay in Houston. Mets reporter. We talked about they got swept by the Astros this weekend. But yesterday during that doubleheader, the Mets reporter Elbs in the midst of a report in foul territory. In the top of the third inning, he is speaking about the relief efforts going on when a foul ball gets smacked his way, and Mr. Gelbs did not miss a beat, quite literally, catches the chopping foul ball with his bare hand, points it to the camera, and continues talking about what's going on with the hurricane reliefs. A bleacher creature adjacent, basically, because he was in the bleachers. Another one I had, we talked about before, was our boy Todd McShay during the West Virginia Tech game. They cut to him, and you can just see him supposed to be reporting about some players going on, and he's reporting about the Yankees-Red Sox game. iPad. And they're wondering, Todd, what are you doing? And it turned out to be a plug for the Watch ESPN app, which he said is actually, I'm not a tech reviewer, so I won't give my review of the app, but for that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the more impressive one, obviously, is the
chop it, the bare hand.
The bare hand has to be the way more impressive one. So I was trying to remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but I could not. I think that one's definitely the more impressive one.
It's another Stevie G.
I like it. Definitely more impressive. I mean, did he look up at the last second? Was it like a no look? Was he watching the play the whole time? Was it like the person he was interviewing was just like, oh shit, the ball's coming and he caught it? Like,
yeah, it's he's facing towards the play. It's one of those, like, I'm sure that one of the cameras on on the front. It's on the third baseline. So I think it's probably one of the cameras that's positioned like along the third base. You know how they have that set up in baseball parks? They have a camera pointed down the left field line from right field foul or from first. You get what I'm saying. I am sure it was something like that, of where he's just looking at that camera, so he has his eye on the ball. For the exact same reason why base coaches wear batting helmets, so that they can make sure that there is something like that. He's not, of course. But obviously doing his interview, so it comes up as he's doing it, catches it, continues going. But it was quite impressive to see. Do you have a bleacher creature for us, Greg?
No, I mean, it's both of those that you mentioned were too good to pass up. I mean, honestly, I know Baseball Tonight does web gems, and on this pod, we certainly don't talk about that, but there were some great catches this week, and if you haven't done so already, I'm sure Jordy will tweet out via the Thunderblog account and stick to Thunderblog Sports and not Amateur Sports when he tweets from that account some of the web gems that have been going on in baseball. I don't want people to forget about baseball as we head into the playoff push. I know football's back and fantasy football's back and all that good stuff, but quite frankly, baseball's still around, baseball is still relevant, and it's one of those things where, Jordy, baseball. I know the Phillies are out, but it's a great America's pastime, as they say, right?
Yeah, it's a great sport to still have on, especially with football being back. It's something that keeps you entertained throughout the week. We have these exciting runs, whether it be for the wild card or for record-breaking home run races, or even if you want to get nerdier into it, batting titles, all that kind of stuff. There's no Triple Crown, at least currently, that really comes to mind that, like, the Miguel Cabrera a couple years ago, or the triple double of Russell Westbrook from last year in basketball. But I mean, it's important that it's still here, that they're not yielding to football like golf has or golf will in a couple of years. October is quite possibly one of the best months of the sports year. And September baseball is just as important, and it's fun to see young guys get their chance. It's young to see the races happen, and I'm excited to see how it all goes down. I know you definitely are, and it's where even if your team's out of it, you can still enjoy it because of the fact that when it's not getting overshadowed by football and Sundays and Mondays and to a degree Thursday, even though that's really the only reason why you watch is for the color rush. Baseball's still here, and ESPN will still show it. Fox will definitely still show it. Getting to see how everything goes down.
Yeah, and the only reason why I watch Thursday night football is for the opening night Patriots Chiefs. But other than that, I mean,
aside from the kickoff game, the regular Thursday night football.
I'm saying, yeah, I agree. I think Thursday night's a joke. Quite frankly, the biggest concern that I have right now
is Goodell going.
So that's the big thing. I mean, he has to, right? They won the Super Bowl. Everyone was saying that because he went to the first preseason game. Everyone's saying that he snuck into the first preseason game, and that's going to be his way of saying, "Oh, I went to Gillette already since the Super Bowl." Like, this no big deal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everyone was saying that he was afraid. I
need to see him get booed the fuck out of by Gillette. That'll ruin my Thursday if he's not booed.
Well, that's the thing, is if he goes, would he be on the field? Like, how would they be able to see him?
He's not going to be in Kraft's box anymore. Robert Kraft hates him, right?
See, that's the thing, is I don't know if Kraft does, because Kraft is one of those guys that he has enough influence in the league where if he wanted Goodell out, he would be out. But the owners just signed Goodell to a however many more year extension.
It's through 2023, something like that.
Yeah, isn't it?
It's something like that. It's something like that. I think it's a 5-year. I think it was a 5-year extension past next year. So I think it's through 2023.
I'm so pissed about it. My dislike for him is unbelievable. I mean, he's suspending a guy in Ezekiel Elliott who literally has not been accused, found guilty, nothing. Literally suspended him for 6 games or 4 games, whatever it was, for doing nothing. Yeah. For doing nothing. Literally, I mean, I'm sure something happened.
Yeah, it's 4, maybe 4.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sure something happened, but he hasn't been convicted. He hasn't even been arrested. All it was is he's a lot
of circumstantial shit that he's acting on right now.
Yeah, all it is he's and it's he's doing the same thing. He's recusing himself. He's making himself look like the outside, just like he did in the Brady case. Someone else made the decision. I'll just be the independent person later on. It's nope. Don't even get me started on this guy, Jordy. Let's close out the baseball pod here.
I'm glad I at least got a small taste for the listeners to get. And but yeah, let's close it out. Let's look at this next week. midweek baseball. We start with Labor Day, which leads into the midweek series. For me, with an interesting pick, I'm actually going to go with the Angels and the Oakland A's, and here's why. There's a few other series that are actually more meaningful. This is more a knock at ESPN. ESPN, because I watched literally all day yesterday while I was watching college football, was advertising their Labor Day doubleheader, and you know who they had as the spokesperson, Greg? They had Mike Trout.
Wow.
Mike Trout was the guy. And you know what the ESPN Labor Day doubleheader is? You know who doesn't feature? Feature Mike Trout.
My man, Mike Trout.
Does not feature Mike Trout. It features the Brewers-Reds game. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it has the same amount of meaning as the Angels and the A's. And then the Cubs and the Pirates, which is actually a meaningful game. Good starting pitching in Jake Arrieta and Chad Kuhl. But if you're ESPN, why the fuck are you using Mike Trout as your advertising guy and then not having him in this doubleheader? Push the Oakland game, 4:00 in Oakland, or push the Pittsburgh game back to 1:00. It's Pittsburgh. They don't need to be up. They don't need to be up that late. It's 7:00. They're all, they have all their shit with their fucking trolleys and their, actual good hot dogs. They do have good hot dogs. But yeah, they're too worried about the Steelers and whether or not, Big Ben's going to retire and they're going to, they tailgate on their fucking rivers and all this shit. They need to just have baseball earlier and let's see some Mike Trout. Let's see Mike Trout kick the shit out of Oakland.
It's Major League Baseball's last chance to have a Monday and Monday Night Baseball.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Well said.
Their last chance to do it. Their last chance to have it. Their last chance to throw out Aaron Boone and Sarah, whatever her name is.
Jess Mendoza.
So
how do you get Sarah from that?
I don't know. I listen. Just like Goodell, ESPN completely manipulated the story with just like the Brady situation, as well as they're doing with Ezekiel Elliott. It's amazing how Ezekiel Elliott is doing the same exact appeal process that Tom Brady did. But guess what? No one has. ESPN's not covering it like they covered the Brady thing. Ezekiel Elliott. No one made him stay out there do a press conference. No one got in his grill, and he actually probably did something. Brady literally did nothing. Someone else,
the locker room guy,
some staffer who, whether Brady told him to do it or not, Brady doesn't.
Some real annoying fucking kid.
Brady doesn't write the paychecks. Okay, Brady doesn't pay anybody. Okay, Brady gets paid by Mr. Robert Kraft. Okay, good old Robert Kraft is the name of the paycheck. So if I don't know about you, Jordy, but the person on my paycheck, that's the one I'll listen to. Not. Anyways, the point is ESPN, not a fan. My series that I want to look out for this week.
Wait, quickly, I want to ask you this question. Have you seen, that the meme that's going around, it's super popular right now, where it's the guy walking with his girlfriend and he turns around and looks at some smoke show?
No.
All right, well.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So there's one that's for, it's National League Wild Card is really starting to build up. But let's look at this meaningless preseason game, and it's the guy is ESPN, and the girlfriend is Major League Baseball, and like the hot girl is the NFL Shield.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but continue. Awesome. What is your series that you're looking at?
Yeah. So, sorry. Quick thing. I mean, I want to go Baltimore and New York, but I'm going to save Baltimore for later. I'm going to go Seattle and Houston. Houston has to travel out to Seattle.
Pick.
Seattle is right there in the thick of things. I know, great pick. I'm full of them. Seattle's right there in the thick of things in the playoff hunt. So I think that series, as well as the Dodgers versus Arizona, but as previously said multiple times, I think the Dodgers have packed it in. So I think Seattle-Houston is really going to be the go-to one. And then for the weekend series, Jordy, this is where I'm going to have to use my Baltimore pick. Baltimore at Cleveland. I'm hoping that those two teams beat up on each other a little bit, but quite frankly, Milwaukee Chicago Cubs is a big series.
Huge series.
So there's a lot of big ones out there, and the only one that I have eyes for is the Phillies and Nationals, because I'm hoping the Phillies win more than 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4, just like you predicted, and I'm hoping that they go above 500, like you predicted, and I'm hoping that there's still a point.
It'd be nice.
There's still a 0.1 chance that they make the playoffs. So let's go Phils. Let's go Phils, huh?
Phil.
And that's how we end it.
Well, I had to make my weekend pick. I was going to go with Milwaukee, Chicago. Obviously, a lot of impact there. Another one that actually could be meaningful. We talked about the unfortunate fall of the Royals, but against Kansas City or against Minnesota, not a bad weekend there. And on that march to redemption that we talked about, that's a slight possibility. Pittsburgh in St. Louis next weekend should be fun there. But yeah, we'll end it with go Phils, high hopes, sky hopes that we can have some type of nice ending. But that should do it for us. Greg, I want to thank you once again for coming on. Always a pleasure.
Jordy, anytime. You're always my favorite pod to listen to.
Appreciate that.
For those who don't know, Jordy does a little. He used to do just baseball, but now he's starting to dip into college football and
soon to be NFL this week as well. The full tailgate.
Yep, and he used to do Game of Thrones, but that's obviously stopped. So he's been crushing it, and the pod is unbelievable, and it's a good channel to listen to. Lots of good different things. Quite frankly, I wish he was a little more consistent with his
the postings.
Yeah, with his postings.
It's a crazy thing called life. It sometimes gets in the way.
I hear you.
But
I hear you. Listen, unbelievable pod, Jordy. Thank you for having me on. You're great. Go Phils.
And you're the best. Go Phils. That'll do it for us. Please remember to go like and share the podcast. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter. ThunderBLG is the handle there. Underblog Sports is the Instagram and Facebook names to go search. ThunderblogSports.com, of course, is our presenting site. But for Greg, the Prophet Piatelli, I am Canel, the man who drives the cart. Have a good night, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.